This is episode 19 of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and in this episode, Kenton and I talk about Bandit Heeler from Bluey and why he's so respected among dads. Welcome to another episode of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and I'm joined with Kenton.
Hello.
Well, we're recording this episode in March, but this episode is actually going to be releasing in June in honor of Father's Day, in honor of Father's Day, because we are going to be talking about the dad who is #dad goals, Bandit Heeler.
Guy.
And I actually think your last blog post was about Bluey, so this makes it even better to get more content from you, and it's also Bluey.
I forgot that was the last one.
I think it was, at least, but that's neither here nor there.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere. Yes, that is true. So we'll start out with our recommendations, and I'm going to be recommending Phineas and Ferb. I consider it a success whenever my daughter will watch one of my shows, one of my cartoons instead of one of hers, except for Bluey. But we could talk about that another time, later today. But no, Phineas and Ferb is just the perfect kind of episodic, formulaic show, but still makes it fun by making fun of episodic and formulaic shows. So it's the perfect kind of show for me to put together a workout for, which I've done on the blog before, and I'm doing with Phineas and Ferb now. So no excuse to not get moving, right?
Hey, you gotta come up with them.
Yep. All right, what do you got?
All right. Well, I had thought of something else, but while I was hearing you talk about a show that's a little bit older, it reminded me of Merlin. I don't know
Ooh,
if you've seen that one.
no, I got through the first, what is it, 5 seasons that the show is? I got through the first like four easy, and then the last season kind of I struggled with, but I did finish it, and I did enjoy it.
It's a good show. I forget where you can watch it right now.
I'll look it up and I'll include it in the notes. But I remember I watched it on Netflix back in the day, but
Yeah, it doesn't
it,
look like it's on there anymore. It's on BritBox and Freevee. You can watch it on Freevee, although that's probably with ads, but
yeah,
or
I think it might
Peacock
be
if you
on
have Peacock.
Tubi as well. But
Yeah,
looks
it
like,
says Tubi.
yeah, we got some options then. So I'll include a couple links on the blog for that.
If you have the Amazon Prime subscription, there you go.
Ooh, no commercials there.
Yeah, it depends on which one you have.
I guess that's true. But tell us why you love Merlin.
What's to like about Merlin? Well, the relationship between the title character, Merlin, and Prince Arthur is is both good comedy and it's a good buddy relationship. It doesn't start as a buddy
I
relationship
was gonna
very
say
much,
no, no, no.
but it develops over time, and it's cool to see that character development, and also just development between the characters. Some of the actors, like Gaius and Uther, are just cool, even if, Uther's sometimes the bad guy.
Sometimes.
But and there are some interesting twists too, because in the show it's about how magic is outlawed, and of course Merlin just happens to have a gift of magic, and he has to hide it, and so there's all sorts of interesting twists uh, in terms of how he can use his gift without getting caught, and how he uses it to help Arthur because of, well, I mean, it's not really a spoiler because you meet the dragon in the first episode, but
And this show's been
there's a
out for like
dragon.
10 plus years, so if it's I
It's
mean,
true.
me
It's
and TJ have
kind
this
of old.
conversation all the time about Doctor Who spoilers from the 60s and 70s. I think we can pass on spoilers after like 5, 10 years, never mind the 60s.
If you missed out on a show that's 16 years old now, at least that's when the first season was, I think.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
don't think
double
that's our
check.
fault at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the trick about Merlin is that it looks older. It sort of has a BBC type of production, it's
I
kind of
think
like
it was
Doctor Who.
BBC that did it.
Yep. So it has kind of the same production value as Doctor Who, but at the same time, they got a real castle in France for a lot of the shots, and
Oh,
so
I did
it's
not know
actually quite
that.
impressive. Yeah.
And we're gonna say like 10th Doctor era Doctor Who because now they have a lot more budget and special effects, I feel like. But
That's
yeah,
true.
back
But has
when
it kept the full character?
that's a discussion for another day.
That's
Um, well, cool. I will say that I always expected Arthur to find out about Merlin's powers, um, find out about his powers a lot sooner, because it did not think it would take years and years to of hiding and avoiding his powers to get there in the end. But I'm
almost
also
like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just like, I'm not the one who wrote it, so it's not my vision, I suppose.
Well, it almost reminds me a little bit how in Star Wars, the Clone Wars, they purposefully had to write it so that Anakin didn't never met Grievous all those seasons.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I was thinking
Just
more of like in Smallville, where they perpetually hide Clark's identity from like everyone for years and years because no one knew he was Superman.
well, the way that it's written, it kind of makes sense that when Arthur finds out, that's when it's all over.
Yep. Uh, all about expectations. But
Mm.
all right, you want to jump in about Bandit Heeler, the dad of all dads? We'll
There are
go
too
like
many examples to think about.
well, for context, we both picked five uh, Bandit moments, Bandit episodes that we enjoyed, and we're just going to spend a minute or two talking about each one, and we're just going to hop back and forth,
Sounds
commenting
good.
as we do. So, you want to start with your first one?
And that's it's sort of illustrated really well in the whole episode, which is um, one you can't miss, the magic xylophone. It's episode 1 of season 1. Um,
There you go.
I mean, I don't mind the music, first of all, because it's classical music. It's not the Rondo alla Turca, by
You are
the way.
definitely a music
Um,
guy.
but I forget which one it is. I'm pretty sure it's a Mozart piece.
For
But
those of you at BYU, if anyone's listening there, Kenton is in the men's chorus or whatever choir he's in now. So go catch him
yeah, I'm in the
there.
concert choir.
Concert choir, that's what it is. So he's our music guy.
That said, I really
What do you
like the
love
way
about the
that
xylophone?
Bandit plays with his daughters in Magic Xylophone because, and I can think of other episodes as well where he's willing to go out of his way, but he's just so able to be so focused and to play along with the game. Um, and I mean, there are other
I'll
games
admit
that he doesn't always like.
I have such a hard time getting into the imaginative play with my girls sometimes. So I, all the respect for Bandit.
Well, in some ways, you almost have to have a sort of flair with telling stories because he's the guy who goes to the shopkeeper to buy the magic statue, and then oh wait, no, actually, I'm thinking of a different episode, aren't I?
But it's still proving your point.
I am thinking of a different episode. Regardless, the magic statues one is also an excellent episode.
The
That one's called The Weekend. Um,
magic
you know what?
xylophone also he just commits to all the games they play.
You can tell I'm so prepared right now.
No, but you're proving your own point there, even if it was by accident. That there's just so many examples of how he just gets into the games with the girls.
True, just the way that he's able to be so active and involved, even if it's not necessarily in ways that he always wants to, is really impressive. Um,
Yeah.
I know there's different styles. It's like, oh, well, when you have your children, they come into your life, not not you into theirs, and all of that is true. But I think you need to be willing to take that time out of your schedule and your interests to be able to play with your kids, because that's how they're going to have that connection with you.
Well, and that kind of plays into a little bit of the first one on my list, which is exercise. And I just love how the, I mean, part of it's just the kids playing around him while he exercises, but he allows them to like be involved with his exercise routine, which I mean, my girls will do that. Like they'll climb on my back when I'm doing push-ups, and I'm like, we got a bluey push-up going on right now.
Hey,
So that's what it gets that's what it gets written as in my exercise log. Is this was a bluey push-up. This was a bingo push-up.
that's like that could be as much as 30 extra pounds,
Oh, it is.
or more.
I can't remember how big she is at this point, but yes, exactly. But it's setting a good example of exercise for the kids. Plus, it's a form of playing with them, like you were just talking about with the magic xylophone in the weekend. Just another form of connection. All
Yeah,
right, number
that's the
two on
kind of
your
stuff.
list. Yeah, number two on your list was Sean, I believe.
Yeah, the episode where he is the emu. This is a prime example of him working through the pain of being in a hard game for him to be involved in because the emu is very active, and in order to be a proper emu, it also has to be very annoying. And it makes noises like wah. Of course, in some ways, maybe that's kind of fun. You get to be annoying to your daughter. You're like, ha, I can poke you now.
For
But
those of
they're
you
also,
who, for those of you listening, because you won't have our video when you're listening, Kenton's got his hand up as Sean the Emu.
it's fun. It
It
almost
is fun.
reminds me of a Kermit hand puppet,
Oh,
except it's just a bird. Anyway, um, but there's one moment where they take Sean the emu out to play in a park, and then he's also giving lifts to kids in the park, and he has to do it as this emu hand, which is
his
always
poor shoulder.
sticking out. So you can imagine how much of a strain that was giving emu rides to like 20 kids in the park. And so,
The physical therapy part of my brain is just like dying a little bit just with how much strain that physically would be.
oh, he'd have so much tension after that. But I give a lot of back massages, so I almost have an idea of what your job is like, but not really. But
Not really, but I appreciate the empathy.
that said, he also made it a teaching moment because it was about taking care of a pet. So they had to feed Sean the emu. They had to be firm and give direction to Sean the emu so that he didn't just go crazy. And so they had to learn, oh, you need to take charge a little bit. And so there are a few different lessons that that one demonstrates, both his ability to build teaching moments and also his willingness to do hard things.
All right, let's move on to Stumpfest. Um,
Stop fast!
Stumpfest. So I love that my little Bluey was like for a little while was like all excited about Stumpfest every time we ended up on that episode, which I don't know why it just always seemed to happen. But just the demonstration of the healthy adult relationships, which I don't know, like in my parents, I don't know about for your parents, but I feel like for my parents' generation, it just wasn't a big deal. But it's been shown in research and everything just how important other healthy relationships are in addition to the spouse. So to see, I think it was great for to show the girls that, you know, Bandit was, you know, he's got his brother Stripe there and Lucky's dad, and they're all just, it's them playing and showing, you know, grown-ups still play, it just looks differently. Me playing involves me going to the gym frequently, so it just looks different, but it's
Yep.
still play.
Well, that reminds me of a few different episodes where it touches on the fact that sometimes it's hard to develop um,
Oh, cafe.
good adult relationships. Yeah, I was thinking of Cafe
I was thinking
in
of that one when I
particular.
was at the park with my Bluey, and there was another dad with his girls there, and I was just like, I'm too tired to socialize.
I
So,
get
but that
that.
episode definitely popped into my mind.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes it's a challenge too, because you don't want to impose on anybody. But it also, at the same time, it's also sometimes it'd be nice to have a better schedule so then maybe if I did, I'd be at the park at the same times. And then if somebody else had the same idea, you could have developed little bit of a friendship there, right?
That's basically how me and Michael became friends, is just we had the same gym schedule more or less. We started chatting, and now years later, he's on the blog team with us.
It's just how it
It's
goes,
sometimes
that
it works.
proximity.
Yep. All right, you want to talk about Stickbird?
Ah, yes, Stickbird. So this one is kind of a twofer episode, but it's only thematically associated with the previous one because they're going to a resort on the beach.
Hmm.
But in
Which
this
oddly enough
one,
is our next one for on your list, but we'll come back to that in a second.
yeah, I picked two from
That's
consecutive
okay.
episodes, but I think they both illustrate good points.
I
Even though
agree.
one is a little more difficult to get into, which is the one I'm about to talk about, which is in this episode. Bandit is obviously distracted. Like normally, like he's portrayed as the dad who's just always, got it turned on, he's ready to go, right?
Hmm.
But in this episode, like even with if they accidentally threw something at him, like a stick, um, he takes a moment and he doesn't realize what's going on. He'll like, try to get his attention. He's like, huh? Huh? What? And throughout the episode, you can tell that something is on his mind. We never figure out what it is, but it's something that's weighing him down and he can't really talk about it. And so in the episode, um, Bingo she's the younger daughter, she finds a stick that looks like a bird, kind of like a pelican,
Hmm.
and she's so enamored by it, and they play with it, and they make a bird out of sand and put the stick on it as the head. Um, and then they went to go find other sticks to go play with the stick bird. But then some other kids, not knowing, you know, that that stick belonged to somebody, saw the stick and was like, "Yeah, stick." Picked it up, and then Bingo was really sad about it. And they had already moved on to a different part of the beach, so she couldn't get any recourse. Like, hey, that was my stick. Um, and so she had a moment where she had something that made her sad, and um, something that Bandit says to her to try to comfort her is, sometimes you put something beautiful out in the world and people don't appreciate it for what it is. And maybe
Hmm.
that's a hint as to what it was that upset him. We're not sure. Um, but then um, his daughter Bluey comforts Bingo by telling her how she has to grab her emotions, her sad emotions, like ring it up into a ball, and then I'm trying to remember some of it. I forget some of the details, But one part of it is you throw it really, 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 really far, and
Yeah,
then you just sort of try to move on, um,
I think that's
that
one of those
kind of
great
thing.
moments where like Bandit learns from the girls too. It's not just that Bandit is like, yeah, he's the dad and he teaches them, but he's not too proud to learn from them either.
Exactly, and he has the maturity to see how that applies to his situation as well. He's like, "Oh, I'm going through the same thing as being you.
Mhm.
Maybe I should try it." And then uh, he does the thing, and then he throws it. The imaginary thing. You can't see that my hands are empty trying to throw something, but he throws it, and then the camera follows it, and then it goes really, really far into the ocean, and then um, you get a picture of a fish to tell you that they're in the water. But anyway, it's a good moment for demonstrate his maturity.
Yeah. All right. The next one is kind of the flip side of the parenting mental health. Sheepdog is my next one on my list. That Chili's just been overstimulated probably the whole day. Who knows? Mom's never gonna break. And I just love like it's got the great line from her. I just need 20 minutes where no one talks to me or touches me. And but I just love how into it he gets to, do anything he can to give Chili the chance to relax and just recuperate for a moment. Um, it's not fun or convenient for the girls, but it's important to Chili, so it's important to him. And I think, well, and it shows like parenting. It's a we've got in an ideal situation, at least ideal family relationships, the parents work together, and it the kids see it. You know, so to me that's important. Just a reminder of you know me being there for my wife is just as important, if not more important, for my girls than being there directly for them. So it's a balancing act, but it's not a aspect that can be neglected.
It's true. That's true. And it's hard sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Let's go with your next one.
Relax.
You look very
That's
relaxed.
that's the name of it. So this is the episode before Stick Birds. It's season 3, and in it they just arrived at their hotel room at their resort, and they get there, and the girls are excited about all the stuff in the resort that's different. Like they're enamored by the fact that the toilets have ribbons on them.
Well,
They
they call it
said,
like a present or something, I think, right? It's like, oh, it's got a
no,
present.
no, it had a ribbon because it got a prize as being the best toilet.
Oh, that's right.
And then they're also and then they find towels in their room and the bunk bed, and their mom says, "You need to go and get ready and get the sunscreen on so that we can go to the beach and relax." And then so they're like, "Okay, we'll go to the bathroom." I think is where the sunscreen was. They go there and they see that's where they see the ribbon on the toilet. They're like,
Yeah.
"Mm." And then Louis rips it open, and Bingo's like, "Oh, I want to rip it." And they're like, "Well, let's see if there's another one." So they went to another bathroom, and they ripped the next one open. It's like, "Yay!" And then Chili says, "Girls, we need to go and relax on the beach." And she's obviously strung up a little because I think she was just ready for getting to the beach and relaxing, right?
Yeah.
And then Bandit says, "Hey, why don't you go down to the beach and then we'll catch up with you?" She says, "Are you sure?" He says, "Yeah." So she goes down. Um, she struggles to relax, which, sometimes that's how it is, right? You're an adult and you're like, should I read my book? Should I just take in the air? Should I, like, you sort of
Yeah.
overcomplicate it, right? But what he ends up doing while he's watching the girls is he takes a little nap. And sometimes you just have to figure out that balance where you can just take a nap, but when the girls are like, how does this work? Talking about the big fancy jet tub. He's like, oh, it has bubbles. You want to see how it works? And they're like, yeah. So he turns it on and they're like, whoa, it's too much. It's crazy. And Chile comes back and says, well, they're really having fun, aren't they? And Bandit says, well, it's just they just know how to do it.
Well,
They
and I
know how
think,
to enjoy themselves in the moment.
well, I think the thing that gets me in that episode is that Chili's got this whole like idea of I have to do the relaxation thing exactly right. I have to like, what's the best way to relax? And it's like, no, it's just do what feels right, do what you want to do, and just enjoy your time. You're on vacation. Don't stress about how to relax.
It's true.
And
It's true.
it's hard to do in practice. Yeah.
Yep, yep. We have all these expectations and then we forget to take in what's in front of us.
Yeah. All right. Next up on our list is I had a wagon ride. Um, I've actually used this one as instructions for my daughter who loves to interrupt me and my wife. So she Bandit will take Bluey. Bandit's taking Bluey and Bingo to the park and in the wagon and keeps running into adults, which is so frustrating. I remember as a kid, just like, oh, no matter where my parents go, they run into someone.
And they
Um,
talk.
and they talk forever. But you know, Bandit does this thing though where like, hey Bluey, if you want to talk to me, just touch my arm and I'll touch your hand and you'll know that I'm there. I'll know that you're there. And you'll have your turn to talk, which I've used as a great strategy. Doesn't always work with my Bluey, and it's got a I don't know. It's a nice like talking to the kids about how to um and be patient and how to communicate properly and appropriately in ways that respect everyone instead of just okay, it's my turn, I need to go, it's my turn to talk. So maybe by the time my daughter's an adult, she'll figure that part out. But
Yeah, sometimes they just have to give some patience.
yeah, if she's like me, she'll. No, I think I figured it out eventually, but I'm still not that great at it. So it
How
is what
it
it is at
goes.
this point. All right, time for your last episode.
Oh, which ones have I talked about? I talked about relax. I talked
I'll
about
give you a hint from your
Sean.
list. Be romance.
Oh, yes. Be
We want to see a
romance.
smoochy kiss.
So in this episode, the kids are like, you two aren't romance enough. You need to be romance.
I love that romance was something that you just are.
It's true.
It's not being romantic. You are romance. Be
You know,
romance.
it almost sounds like it's almost like those billboards in foreign countries that are in English, but they're not perfectly in English. But um, we have that here in America too sometimes with other languages. But um, it's just
See,
uh,
that just makes me think of a different restaurant episode with the edamame beans. The bonjour. But
bonjour,
that's a tangent that we don't need to worry about today.
bonjour.
Bonjour.
I know like one
Je
or two
suis
phrases in
ancien.
French. Je mange un orange.
Anyway,
All the random French that is not very useful, but I feel proud that I know, you know.
I was very proud that I understood that one of the things he said was, I am a dog.
Oh yeah, that's I forgot about that one.
Je suis un chien. My pronunciation, I haven't taken French
Oh,
in
oh, sure.
15 years, so my pronunciation is going to be awful.
Yeah, I need to review my French and learn significantly more. That said, like they just want their parents to have a romance evening. So they set up what the game is, and so the parents have to wait until it's all ready. And they're like, okay, you are coming to a fancy restaurant. And they're not married, but they're on a date.
I think it was a first date too. It was supposed to be.
Well, that's what Chili made it into. He said, no, we just met. And so Bandit shows up. He's like, we like to reserve a table. They're like, reservations only. And he said, oh, well, I'd like to make a
Romeo
reservation. It said,
McFlourish.
Romeo McFlourish. We don't have that name on the list.
Your
And
accent sounds
so,
a little bit more English than it does British, but that might just be because of where you served your mission.
yeah, well, I have a very English accent.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try to work on my Australian a little more.
Next time,
Romeo McFlourish.
I almost sounded Irish. Oh gosh, we're getting off here. Um, okay. Anything else about fancy restaurant? The disgusting
Well,
food?
at some point they get the dinner, and at first it's just koi cans of beans, right? Um, but then they're like, is there something more special, more romance than canned beans? And then, so what Bingo does is she goes and gets like some jello and some spaghetti and some pickles and some other random stuff and throws it all on a plate because it's real food, right? To make it more special, air quotes. And they bring it to the table. It's for Chili. And she's like, oh, you shouldn't have. And it's just because it just looks disgusting. And um, then the kids are like, you don't like our food? And she says, well, no, it's just, is there, and they said, is it because it's not special? And then she doesn't know what to say because she's just on the spot. And then Bandit
Enter
says,
Bandit.
you know, this is the dad goal, right? And slash husband goal. He says, what if we swap? Like it looks really yummy. And she's like, you would do that? She's like, of course, yeah. And so he then, because they had told her that she can't eat it pretend, she has to actually eat it.
For real
And so
life?
he takes it for her for real life. And he takes it and eats everything.
And then he
You
throws
can
up in the
tell
backyard.
every bite he's like, oh, it's so so good. And he just struggles to down it. And he does it anyway. Prove just how good their cooking was, right?
Oh yeah.
And then they're like, are they smoochy kissing him? Because that's what romance is. And
It's like, no, but it's okay.
true. And so Chili's like, oh, noticing that Bennett's about to throw him, he's like, we should go take a stroll out in the moonlight. Just us two. So she takes his hand and rubs his back. They're like, are they romance yet? No, but they're holding hands and she's rubbing his back, so that's pretty close.
No.
And then at the end of the episode, he upchecks all of it.
Yep.
You don't see it,
Nope. This is a kids show. We don't show up Chuck here.
but how brave of him to eat the food, the disgusting food that his
Oh
children made
yes.
for them.
Oh yes. All right. And for our final dad goals moment. Um, I couldn't decide between keepy uppy and dance mode, but the point between the two is just the things we do for our kids and admitting when we did something wrong. Because I think that's that I make plenty of mistakes with my girls, and I just it's a struggle at times. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, in Keepy Uppy, when he knocks the um when he knocks the balloon onto the grass and it pops, or in dance mode when first he feels awful for taking um the fry or the chip, and then when everyone takes Bingo's dance modes from her, because she doesn't know how to say no. Um, Bandit and the rest of the family in that episode jump through the hoops to help cheer her up and make things right. And it's a my understanding is that with parenting, we're going to make plenty of mistakes, but as long as we can make amends, admit where we're wrong, um, it can still be a productive learning experience for the kids and hopefully won't scar them too much. So, gotta hope that my kids aren't going to be in therapy for too long in their lives, right?
I mean, that's the hope, right?
Yeah,
And ultimately, it's about taking that time to process those emotions and those difficult moments with them, right? Understanding where they're
yeah.
coming from.
All right. Any final thoughts on Bandit being dad goals and husband goals?
Well, it's good to see a piece of media that shows a present father who's not stupid. Um,
He's goofy, but he's not stupid.
it's true, he's not stupid. He's not made fun of.
Well, no,
Um,
he's made fun of, but he's made fun
well,
of because
I
he's goofy.
I mean, he's willing. He's a willing participant in all of it. And he's not the butt of the joke, but he's usually just, oh, good man. It's just he's
Gotta be
somebody who you
done.
could he's somebody you can look up to instead of just being, parents dumb, men stupid. That's so common, especially the last 15 years of Hollywood that I can think of.
Agreed. All right. Well, thanks
20
for
years
joining
more likely.
us. Thanks for joining me to discuss Bandit Healer. And thank you to our listeners for joining us as well.
You can tell I
And
can get off topic.
so we have a good time with the ADHD playing off ADHD. So, to quote Bandit, um, to quote Mr. Bandit Healer, gotta be done.
It's gotta be done.
Gotta be done. Thanks for listening to the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. Intro and outro music was provided by David Schradell. You can follow us on most social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. You can follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.